Welcome back to Intentional Money Moves Live. I If you were joining us at the regularly scheduled time, I was having some kind of an audio issue, and so got about halfway through my conversation and found out that you guys couldn't hear me. So hopefully this is recording, and you'll be able to hear what I want to share here. I just want to acknowledge that a lot of us set intentions in January that are meaningful and we're excited. And there's that new year energy that people are really excited about. And now we're sitting here halfway through the year, right? We're sitting here in June. A lot of us may be feeling like there's a little bit of a gap between where we thought that we'd be by now financially and where we actually are. And so this three-part series was really inspired around this kind of conversation of like, hey, I set these big goals. I'm not feeling like I'm making the progress that I wanted to. Maybe it's time for a reset. Okay. And so I want you to kind of think about what were some of those intentions that you set in January? Maybe you really wanted to build more financial security and stability and you wanted to focus on saving this year. Or maybe you wanted to um, be more proactive in budgeting and stop avoiding your budget, right? Or maybe you wanted to increase your confidence around investing or making sure that, investing isn't giving you anxiety, right? Whatever that is, we're going to look at kind of the gap between what was the intention that you set and the reality of where we're at right now. But I want to be very clear because this can feel a little bit uncomfortable for people. And so here's what I want you to hear me say: that gap between the intention that you set and the reality of whatever your situation is right now, that is not a character flaw. Okay. That is not a character flaw. It's just information. And today we're going to look at that together on purpose while being kind to yourself. Okay. Because you can't change what you're not willing to look at. And this is the first in a three-part series that I'm calling the Intentional Mid-Year Money Reset. So over the next 3 Tuesdays, we're going to walk through a complete reset together, step by step, so that way you can finish this year really with intention instead of just letting things happen. Okay. Now, I want to mention that there is a workbook that goes along with the series. If you are on our Watch Her Thrive email list, you've already gotten a copy of the workbook. Now, because I'm recording this the way that I am, because I wasn't sure if it would work live, it wasn't working before. Um, I'm going to need to, I think when I post this, I'll be able to include a link to the workbook for you to download with the video. So I'll make sure to include a link to that. But you do want to get a copy of the workbook. You'd also just have a piece of paper to write some things down on. That would be helpful as well. So earlier this year in March, I published a book called Intentional Money: The Modern Woman's Guide to Building Wealth, Purpose, and Peace. And in that book's available on Amazon. I'll also include a link to that and with the video as well. But in that book, I share what I refer to as the intentional money method. And the intentional money method is based on a framework of 6 pillars. So we're going to talk about 2 of the pillars today. And the first pillar of the intentional money method is clarity. Okay. And clarity is just what it sounds like. It is getting honest, it's getting clear about exactly where you stand right now. Not where you hoped you would stand, right? Not where you're afraid that you stand, but just let's have a reality check. Where are we? Okay. And here's why this matters so much: you just can't make a single good financial decision from a foggy place. If you don't know what's coming in, if you don't know what's going out, what you've saved, what you owe, every decision is just guessing at that point, right? And honestly, most people are just walking around guessing because for a lot of you, looking feels scary, right? And I promise you, the not knowing is actually much heavier than the knowing. Okay. So, what we're going to do this together. If you have the workbook, great. If you don't, like I said, just grab a piece of paper. There's a page in the workbook called your mid-year financial snapshot. Okay. So again, you can just grab a piece of paper, but what I want you to do, I'm going to have you look for 6 specific numbers. You do not have to share them. These are yours. And you can look for them right now. You can look for them later, but I want you to know these 6 numbers. Okay. The first one is how much your take home income is. So, how much income do you have coming into your account? It might be from your employer. You may have other sources of income, maybe rental income, investment income. I want you to write down all your sources of income, child support, spouse support, whatever it looks like, know what your fixed expenses are. Now, keep in mind, fixed expenses are those expenses that are the same every month, right? It might be your rent or mortgage, utilities, maybe your cell phone bill, subscriptions, things like that. Those expenses that you have committed to a certain amount every month. That's number 2. The third one is gonna be your variable spending. That's gonna be spending that changes from month to month. Includes things like food and vacation, clothing, things that are not consistent from month to month that are going to vary. That's gonna be your variable spending. Your fourth number is your total savings. Everything that you've saved so far. It's gonna include your emergency savings, your retirement, all of your savings. Your fifth number is going to be your total debt, and that's going to include your mortgage, your car loans, student loans, credit card debt, all of it, right? Just one number. That's what we're looking at here. And then the last, certainly but not least, I want you to look at how much you have contributed to your retirement this year. Okay. So just 6 numbers. What is your total take home income each month? What are those fixed expenses that you've committed to each month? What are those variable expenses that you have each month? What is your total savings? How much is your total debt? And how much have you contributed to your retirement year to date? All right, now take a breath. I know for some of you that was totally fine, right? You went through, you got the numbers, fine. And I know for some of you, looking at the numbers can feel like a really big deal, and both are completely okay. All right. The win here is looking, it's paying attention. Okay. And here is the thing that I want you to really sit with. Whatever you just discovered, whatever it was, that's your starting line. Okay. Not your January starting line. That's real. That's where we are right now, right? That's your June starting line. And we all know you can't run a good race if you don't know where your starting line is, right? Or you refuse to see where your starting line is. All right. So in your workbook or on your piece of paper, I want you to answer this. All right. Looking at this snapshot, what surprises you? Either positively or negatively. Just what surprises you? What jumped out at you? Okay. And then the bigger one, the one that connects us back to January, at the start of the year, what did you intend for your finances? Now, even if it wasn't a formal goal, even if it was just maybe a feeling like I want to be less stressed about money, that might have come up for you, right? I want you to write that down too. Here's what we're doing. We're putting the intention and we're putting the reality side by side. And it is absolutely not to beat ourselves up. Okay. We're putting it side by side because, again, we want this clarity. The clarity in the gap between these two things. That's our roadmap, right? It's not a problem. This isn't something to beat ourselves up about. It's where we're moving, the direction that we're headed in. Okay. So I want you to just kind of take a minute and think about, on a scale from 1 to 10, think back to that January intention. How aligned do you feel like that January intention is to where you want to be now? Okay. On a scale from 1 to 10, how aligned do you feel with your January intentions? Okay. And there's some place in the workbook where you can kind of um, take some notes and reflect on what you're seeing here. I want to encourage you to do that. Again, if you haven't downloaded the workbook yet, I'm including a link here with the video. All right. So we got clear on the numbers, but numbers alone do not tell you whether you're on track or not, right? Because the right track is going to be different for every single woman in this room. And that brings us to our second pillar, and that's values. Okay. Now, here's something that I believe in my core: your values are your compass. Goals change, circumstances change. I can tell you, if I think about my own January intentions, a lot has changed in my life since January. It's been a lot of curveballs thrown at me, right? The market goes up and down, right? But your core values, what actually matters to you, those are the thing that tells you whether your money is working for your life or against it. Okay. And so this is important, especially for that gap that we were just talking about, because here's what I see all the time: women assume the gap between where they are and where they want to be is a discipline problem. That is a very common assumption. I'm just not trying hard enough, or I don't have the willpower. But so often, it's not a discipline problem at all. It's actually a values alignment problem. When you are spending and you are saving, and you're lined up with what you actually value, money. But when your money is going toward things that don't actually matter to you, things you think you should want, or things that everybody else is doing, honestly, money feels exhausting. It can feel guilty, feels like a leak that you just cannot plug, right? So let us figure out your compass, right? In the workbook, there is a values check. It's a list of values, and I'm going to read some of them so you can, if you don't have the workbook in front of you, you can kind of follow along. But here's what I want you to do. As I read them, I want you to really kind of just get quiet and sit quietly for a minute and listen and see what comes up for you. If there's something that really lights you up, right? Which one really feels like a strong yes, that's me. Okay. So here's some of them: security and stability, growth and learning, health and well being, freedom and flexibility, adventure and experience, community and belonging, family and legacy, generosity and giving, creativity and expression. I want you to notice which ones kind of pull at you, right? And here's your job. I want you to narrow it down. I want you to pick your top three, just three. And this is hard on purpose because clarity comes from choosing. What are the three values that matter the most to you in this season of your life right now? That's right. Even your values can evolve. So we are talking about in this season of your life right now. All right. Might be freedom, it might be security, family, growth. We are all so different. And that's the entire point here. There's no one right way to use money. There is only your way, right? The way that lines up with your values. So once you have your top three, here's a reflection that I want you to do. I want you to think about your spending over the last 6 months. And I want you to ask yourself honestly, where did my money actually go? And I just want you to notice it. Okay. This isn't about guilt. This is about awareness, right? Where is the alignment and where is the gap, right? And then because I never want this work to feel like a beatdown, I just really don't. I want you to find the good in this year that felt completely aligned. I was sharing in our Empowered Sisterhood program, we do a weekly coffee chat. And this morning, the sisterhood members got together for our coffee chat. And we always start the conversation with gratitude. And I was sharing this morning how grateful I was to have some time, just my youngest son and I went down to Florida last week for a work event. And then we stayed and just spent the day together on Friday and just having that time together. We went jet skiing together. Like, just it was a really awesome day. It was an expensive day as days go, but I was so happy and content with that use of funds because I really value our relationship. I know, with school and his stuff and my stuff, things get busy. It's easy to feel disconnected, right? And so for me, that was really valuable. That felt really good. So I want you to find what over the last year felt completely yes, like truly yes. Maybe it was a trip, maybe you invested in some education for yourself. Maybe it was finally paying somebody to do the thing that you hate doing, right? I want you to notice what's working for you because the evidence is really important to support the belief that you can do this, right? And so I want you to find that evidence. So good. Okay. This is the energy I really want. Not what am I doing wrong, but how can I do more of what is already right? Okay. And then that last piece of the values work, and this is the one that becomes your bridge into the next couple of weeks, right? Where's the biggest gap between your values and where your money's been going? And what is the one thing that you want to do differently in the second half of the year? That's it. That's it. That is the reset in motion. So you found your real starting line with that clarity and you found your compass with your values, right? And from those two things, you can build a second half of the year that really feels like you. All right. Before we close out today, I want you to do one simple thing. I want you to take everything that you just uncovered, your snapshot, your values, your gaps, and I want you to write one intention for the second half of the year. Now, I'm not talking about a goal with a big number attached to it. I'm talking about direction, something true. It might be something like, I want my money to feel calm instead of chaotic, or I want to finally feel confident about my retirement savings, or I want my spending to match what really matters to me, right? One intention. You can write it on the page in the workbook that's called your part one intention. Or if you're just working on a piece of paper, just write it on your piece of paper. But I do encourage you to write it down. Okay. And if you're willing to share with the rest of us, please share that with the rest of us. Now, here is what is coming for the rest of this series. This is part one of our intentional mid year reset. Uh, Today was about clarity and values. Where we are going next is for part two. We're going to get into what actually has been getting in your way, the money stories that are in your head, the practical gaps in your plan. Right. So we're going to be talking next week about mindset and strategy, where things really going to start to shift. And then we're going to conclude on Tuesday, the 30th. And that's where we really talk about pulling it all into action and how you can actually sustain your plan. Right. So I'll just say I do have something very special planned for you for that final show. So make sure I'll figure out what's going on with the microphone and the audio and all of that. But I'll make sure for next week that we're good to go live and that you're there for that third Tuesday where we're going to offer something very, very special, right? And listen, if today reminded you that you do not actually want to do this money work alone, that you are craving some structure, some accountability, some women who get it, that is exactly what the Empowered Sisterhood is for. That is my membership community where we do this kind of intentional work together. We're doing it every week. I can include a link with this video if you would like more information. Just want you to know that the door is open for you. So if you are ready for more, I would love to invite you to join us. But for today, your only job is to grab that workbook and sit with your intention. So one more time, if you want the intentional money reset workbook with everything that we did today, I am including a link with the video so you can go ahead and get that. and you'll have that for next week, the next couple weeks. That's just one workbook for the whole series. I'm so proud of you for taking the time for yourself today to look honestly at your money. It takes courage, right? And you showed up and you did it. That's what intentional looks like. So I hope to see you next week at noon for part 2. Until then, take good care of yourself and remember that you are so much more capable than that gap makes you feel.